Welcome to the Nerd Party.
I think people are perverts.
I've maintained that. That's the foundation of my career.
Hello, everybody at home, and welcome to House of Fincher, a show that is dedicated to David Fincher and his directorial works. Today, we are talking about The Social Network. That's right, a Facebook movie, you might ask? But nay, it is so much more than just a Facebook movie. It is about accidental billionaires. And tonight, as always, I have with me John.
Yes.
And Brandon.
Hi, I like that intro. I give that a like.
Thank you so much, guys, for being with me here tonight. I am so excited to talk about this film with you guys because I know we love Fincher so much because obviously we're doing a podcast about him. We're going one episode at a time with one of his directorial efforts at a time, and it's so great to talk about it and watch it because I want an excuse to watch Fincher, and this is one of my favorites. The Social Network is one of my absolute favorites, and not to jump ahead too much, but it's definitely because of the editing. And this is one of those films where when I first heard it was coming out, I didn't know. I just heard Zuckerberg, Facebook movie. That's all I heard about it when it was coming out. I didn't hear the name Sorkin. I didn't hear the name Fincher, anything like that. And so I had complete disinterest. I was just like, what? Why would I want to watch a movie that is about Facebook? And then once I heard Sorkin and Fincher, I was just like, oh, this is a completely different story. I gotta see this as soon as I can. Brandon, what was your first experience with The Social Network?
So keep in mind, as we've been going through this, so I did not like Zodiac. I did not like Benjamin Button. And then here I am hearing of David Fincher making a movie about Facebook. And at this time that I was hearing this, I was just getting into Facebook like a lot of people were. And I'm like, Facebook to me was Farmville. And I'm like, really? I really don't want to be watching a movie with this. I had absolutely zero interest in seeing this movie. And it wasn't until it came out on Blu-ray that I decided to watch it. But it's interesting because what actually got me interested in watching this movie is something that's happened to a few movies for me in the past. And that my entry point into this film was actually Reznor and Ross's score. And I had picked up, I wanted to like Nine Inch Nails. I wanted to so badly, but I just couldn't. And then Ghosts came out, which is this 2-disc album that they did that was all instrumental stuff. And I'm like, I'm going to pick this up. So I bought it new. I bought it blind from Best Buy here in Regina. And I'm like, this is really good stuff. And so I kind of fell in love with his instrumental music. And I remember listening to that repeatedly on a 16-hour drive as I moved from Regina, Saskatchewan to Prince George, BC. And this kind of became like a turning point in my life listening to this music. And then I found out shortly thereafter that they were doing the score for the Social Network. And I picked up the score and I fell in love with the score. And I still hadn't seen the movie. It was a while later. And then I'm at a friend's house for an Academy Award party. And I'm like, I really hope that Social Network wins. And somebody's like, why? It's just an electronic score. And I'm like, no, this is something different. This score is really unique and really original. And I've been a champion of Reznor and Ross since they've started scoring movies. And I think that all of their film scores are absolutely amazing. And so finally I decided to give the movie a try, and I watched it and I was blown away with it. And recently, so just for this last week, I watched it for the second time, and I'm like, wow, this movie is really damn good. Like, this is even better than I remember the first time watching it. So that's my long entry into this film, is actually through the score.
John, what about you?
I think that's cool because just tangentially, just a related sort of thing is the whole way that my friend Mike wound up seeing The Matrix is he had not seen it when we went to go see when we went to go to Star Wars Celebration in Denver back in 1999, hyping up for Phantom Menace. And as we were driving through the mountains of Denver, I picked up John Coltrane, Giant Steps, which is still one of my favorite albums of all time, and the Matrix soundtrack. And playing the Matrix soundtrack got him into it because Clubbed to Death by Rob D was on it. He was like, this is an amazing track. And I was like, oh yeah, it's in the Matrix. You should maybe watch it now. And he wound up seeing The Matrix, and then he said how upset he was that song was only in it for like 2 seconds. He was like, that sucks, man. I wanted that song in there for longer. I was like, yeah, I know, but I got you to see the movie, so who cares? Sorry for the detour on that one. Just relating to the whole soundtrack thing. But, 2010, I'm still, my kids are still very young. I've basically retired going to the movie theater by this point. And it takes big event movies to sort of drag me out of retirement, even to this day. And so Social Network didn't get me in the theater, but I was interested in seeing it. I was an early adopter of Facebook. I was fascinated by the technology. I was actually, an early evangelist for social media and stuff like that. And so I was very interested in the topic. And so when we finally rented it, I was on fire. I was on fire. I loved it. It completely blew me away. And so I've seen it a couple of times. So this is my first time revisiting it in some time. And this was a reminder of something I think I said when we talked about Benjamin Button, where I could legitimately see this film being directed by somebody else and not being as good as it turned out. Mm-hmm. Somebody else gets bogged down in a lot of these details and a lot of these transitions and spends too much time on things. And there is a ruthless efficiency that Fincher uses to tell this story that I think is just as important a lesson in Benjamin Button or other films that he's done, where you can see him deciding how this is going to go, how he's pushing it into a mold. And I was once again reminded of Hitchcock of, it doesn't matter what the source material is. You're going to sit down, you're going to look at this, and you're going to say, this is a David Fincher film. I can tell immediately this is a Fincher film, and I know how this is going to go from here. So what about you, Tristan? I mean, were you blown away by it the first time you saw it, or was this one you had to sort of...
No, this was one where the first time I saw it, I was just like, holy crap, this is a solid motion picture. And I love how you described it, John, ruthlessly efficient. This has to be his most efficient storytelling to date. Like, it is so tight. It is such tight storytelling and tight editing and scoring and just like everything, the shot selection, the acting, the writing, it's just essential and to the point, and it doesn't feel, but at the same time, it doesn't feel rushed. And that is such a hard thing to do. I know that's the point of movies, is to keep your attention for 2 hours, but this movie keeps your attention for 2 hours. There's not a moment that's dull. There's not a moment, there's not a lull. There's no point where you're just like, oh, I can go to the bathroom here and skip that. But at the same time, you're not like at the edge of your seat, like not wanting to miss anything. You're just engaged. Your brain is turned on for the entire time. And they took something that, like for the, take the example, like when he's making Face Smash. They took that scene, which could have been incredibly boring, with just like some guys sitting around a computer, like laughing their asses off, like putting up pictures of women that they know. But instead, like he actually, Fincher and Sorkin inserted some coding language, but just enough to intrigue you on how he was doing something, but not bore you to death with talking about coding and CSS or whatever. And so that's the kind of thing where like Fincher constantly walks that line of what is interesting and what is not from a storytelling standpoint. And when I first watched it, I was just engrossed. It's like one of those, during that time, like around 2008, 2010, and 2012, around that time, I was buying movies like crazy. Like whatever, like if I watched it and I liked it, I would buy it on Blu-ray. And this was one of those where my girlfriend at the time, now wife, would turn to me and ask me, so are you buying that? I'm like, oh yeah, I'm buying that.
What I think is really, really interesting is it sets you up for the pace of the film immediately with that opening conversation that he's having. It sets the expectation. What I paid attention to this time is Zuckerberg talking to his girlfriend, Rooney Mara, is setting the pace for the conversation, for the storytelling through the whole movie,
Mhm.
how it's going to flop around. And it's a really tricky and slick way, I think, of just using that actor's performance to immediately put you in that mode of how it's going to bop around. It sort of warms you up and says, okay, here's how we're going to do this story. And so when it starts flipping around, it's not jarring the way that it can be in a lot of cases where, say, a heist movie. I think of like the Ocean's movies. Those are really good examples of how they walk through and you see everything. But it's very tricky to do it right. And here, having that scene warm you up and then get you into it, and then all of a sudden you're bopping around just the way he does in his head, I think really, really accentuates the decision making with putting this film together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great way to introduce us to the characters, and you got it spot on, John. Because I don't know I'm not good with actors' names. I've said that before, but the guy that's playing Zuckerberg here is
Jesse Eisenberg.
Jesse Eisenberg, and I think they've captured him perfectly. And it's really interesting because not only in his tone and the way that he's communicating, but like the writer and the director have clearly taken a stance on how they feel this situation went down. And they take a stance on each of the characters and their motivations throughout this whole film. And it's really interesting because as nerdy as Zuckerberg is, as socially awkward as he is, for him to come up with this revolutionary experience online that everybody's involved in, to be boiled down in his character with jealousy over his friend, is really fascinating. They really kind of take a hard stance on that's their interpretation of the character, and we kind of get that experience right from the beginning with him being so petty, because he jumps in and he's writing that blog about his girlfriend right away, that mean blog about her. So it's setting up even at the beginning that he's a petty person, and they definitely take their stance on that's their view of him.
Yes, and I think that what happens as well with their stance on Zuckerberg is that they also wind up making, I think that Andrew Garfield gets very unfairly overlooked a lot of times in discussions about this film because he plays an incredibly sympathetic person, somebody who was just completely unprepared for the way things were going to go, completely underestimated the lengths that Zuckerberg would go to. And it's what's fascinating about what you're saying, Brandon, is one of the things that I really walked away with this time is how our modern day social interactions, as defined by Facebook, Twitter, all of those sorts of things, have been constructed from the beginning from a bunch of basically sociopaths who don't relate to people well. And they wind up reshaping the way society talks to each other. And it's, in a sense, I think this time, I think seeing this, looking backwards through the history of social media, rewatching it now is a much more uncomfortable experience, seeing how the people that create this environment wind up reshaping society to behave like them. And that's an uncomfortable realization.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe I'm reading too much into it, but that's how I'm seeing it.
I don't think you're far off the mark there. I mean, like, those are definitely thoughts that I had too, because, like the negative start that he has with his blog, like, it right from there, while it's his own blog, he's just vomiting his thoughts out in the moment, and he's doing it all night while he's creating this negative website to rate women.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's basically what social media is kind of boiling down to nowadays, is instantaneous reactions to things. And this movie sums that up very, very well from the beginning of it. And that's where they were at the time. That's where they came from when they made these websites. And that's where we are now with the majority of our interactions on Facebook and Twitter.
I remember when he starts blogging and he opens up livejournal.com, and both my wife and I were just like, ugh, LiveJournal. Like, only friggin' weirdos were on LiveJournal.
Yeah, well, I mean, there were so many bizarre platforms. I'm old enough to have roamed around during the Usenet days and gotten into flame wars and cross posting. Look it up, y'all. It's always been brutal online, but I think what it was the brutality was a subset of interactions, and the fact that the paradigm got flipped so that the brutal subset became the standard bearer. I think I basically wind up seeing this film as so much more prescient at it. Like, there's something Fincher saw that I think a lot of us didn't see back then. I think Fincher saw what this really was heading toward over time.
When Facebook launched in February of 2004, my freshman year of college started in September of 2004. And so I was on campus when Facebook was that year, was months old and was only available to college students. And so I remember it being the thing to do. Basically my first week of college, they're like, oh, get a Facebook. I'm like, what's a Facebook? And it was just insane how it was all consuming, because I remember when you met somebody in real life, whether it was in the hallway, in class, you shook hands, you waved to someone, like someone said like, oh, this is my friend so-and-so from out of town. The first thing you did when you got back to your dorm was look them up on Facebook and friend them. That's what you did. And it was very nostalgic, even though I don't have a Facebook right now, because the only time I've had a Facebook was beginning of my freshman year and the very end of my senior year. That's the only time I've had a Facebook. And even though I don't like it, it was still so nostalgic to watch this movie and see all of those early versions of Facebook, like see the screen where you're just like, oh man, I remember when they introduced the wall, I remember when it was so clean and simple and it was only for college students. And speaking of which, like, there was like all the screens that were in this movie, like, this is common practice now, but like all of the screens were blue screen, like when they filmed it, and then edited in later so that they could get it exactly perfect for the time period and what they'd be using. And I remember hearing Fincher saying, he's like, yeah, when I saw the rough cut of the film, I was just like, oh my God, this looks so stupid. Like, they're just hovering over a computer. Like, what if it sucks? And then they cut it in. He's like, oh, okay, it doesn't look stupid. Thank goodness.
Well, but this is a question I don't know the technical answer to, and I'm hoping maybe you can answer that. Wouldn't that also have been a technical consideration because of the frame rate has always created a problem with things, the blinking screen and stuff like that, unless it's perfectly in sync sort of stuff?
It can. There's certain ways that you can get away from that. Like if you tune your monitor to be the same refresh rate as your frame rate on your camera. So there is ways to do it on film that they've been doing for decades to get around that. Like there's oftentimes like you'll see a, you watch a news story like back in the day, like on your local news, and they'd be shooting a computer screen. It would just look like crazy. That's because the refresh rate is at a different rate than your frame rate. But with this one, you can actually see there is a couple of shots where the light is jittery on Jesse Eisenberg's face because they didn't match the refresh rate. And then when they shot the opposite, when we actually see the screen, it's just it's just cut in, so you don't have to worry about the flashing. So that is one reason why you want to blue screen it or green screen it in modern day TV and filmmaking.
I didn't notice that about his face there.
It just happened a few times. Mm-hmm. So with this film, what was one of the first things in the movie where because I love asking you guys this question, you're like, boom, that was Fincher. Signature Fincher, signature thing? What was one of the first things that popped into your brain that solidified this movie in his filmography? John, what about you?
This is going to be really lame, but it's actually very early on, and I don't know if this is organic or just because we've been sitting here watching his films, but just the color saturations in one of the first establishing shots when he's running across Harvard. Very early when he leaves the conversation with Erica and he's going across the campus. I looked at it and I said, okay, that looks like a Fincher film. Like and I know that's very underwhelming. You want like some sort of like, yeah, and then he walked in and there's this big thing. But like I looked at that and I'm like, if you just did like a screen grab, I'd say, oh, that was directed by David Fincher. Okay.
I don't think that's lame at all because, I mean, like if I were to answer, it would be like that opening scene, like the way
That the bar scene was shot and the way that it was underlit. Like, because it looks like it's a bar. It looks like it's a college bar. And it looks like kids hanging out at a college bar. And that's the beauty of Fincher's lighting and scenes like that, is because it's not lit like it's for a soap opera. It's not lit like it's for a sitcom. It's lit for reality where you can just see what's going on. Brandon, how about you?
I'm going to go back to my standard in that it seems like Fincher's always got some epic slow motion sequence in his films, and in this he had two major ones that stood out to me, like the first party where the girls are dancing, right, and the boating sequence where the twins lost and in the Hall of the Mountain King was playing, like that whole sequence there, and how like it was, things were like out of focus all around, and it was just focusing on the boats, but everything was done in slow motion, and he was focusing close up on the guys' faces as they were rowing, but there was also those people in the edge of the frame that were like cheering them on, like some guy was wearing like a really old style hat or something like that. I don't know, like those two sequences right there really strike me as Fincher moments.
remember Henley being in slow motion.
During the rowboat sequence?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a I don't know if it's slow motion per se, but I know that with the way that the sound is done and the way that the colors, like I'm thinking right now specifically of the crowd cheering shot. You can't hear the crowd. They seem to be moving in sort of an exaggerated motion while they're cheering on. That sort of accentuates the Winklevi's pain in that moment when they realize they're not going to win. But what's really interesting is you mentioned the slow motion dance scene where all of the girls are dancing and they're starting to do typical college student party stuff going on. And I think that is a really, really interesting sequence, specifically because it shows normal expectation of what college kids are doing, which is being crazy, getting drunk, doing stupid things. And you always hear about how the people that change the world are the ones that buckle down and work. And Zuckerberg and his friends aren't working the way that has traditionally been understood, because they're up while that party is going on, creating this thing that's going to create this incredible ripple effect and become the first step down this long road. And what I felt was a really interesting twinge, I guess, in my memory, in my heart, because I was one of those guys that hung out in the computer lab. I didn't become a coder or anything, but I was putting web pages together back in the 90s and stuff like that and having fun and everything. So I was the guy that was, having trouble with classes because I was getting lost in the internet and doing all those sorts of things. And so I could relate a lot better with the nerds in that sequence than the partiers, because the partiers weren't the people that I really wanted to be around. They were mildly intriguing to me, but even back then I'd look at what they're doing at that party and I would say that, that doesn't really seem that much fun. I mean, it's loud and everything. And so me and my nerd friends, we would go off and we'd do nerdy stuff and we'd still get drunk and everything. Spoilers, sorry. That happens in college, but we were doing nerdy stuff while we did, like we would be playing like D&D while we were smashed and stuff like that. And so I felt this tremendous affinity for the nerds that are off away working in the dark corner while everybody else is having the traditional college experience.
I really enjoy the opening sequence because I really felt like it kind of set up, it set up perfectly the battle and the dichotomy of Zuckerberg and Winklevoss, where, like, even though we don't see the Winklevi, at the party, like, that's what they represent. The Winklevoss twins like, that is their representation. They're very privileged. They're wealthy. They're a part of those clubs. They get the women that they want. They have them literally bust in. There's drugs. There's alcohol. Women in their underwear and everything like that. And then you have Zuckerberg and his kin, who are just luring at women on a computer, like in their own rooms. And I also thought it was a great representation of the objectification of women in real life as well as online, whether like you have these privileged kids who are bringing in, it's just insane. They're busting in women and then like telling them to take their tops off, giving them drugs, making them kiss each other, and then you have Zuckerberg and his people, like doing left and right rating system on women's faces without their permission. And it's like, oh, okay, well, if you're a woman, you're screwed, whether it's online or offline.
Well, I think that's definitely an interesting thing to latch onto, because you really can't help but wonder if one woman had been in that room with them, whether that thing even gets created, because a girl being in the room, you behaved differently, especially as a young man. But I think that going out beyond that, you also wind up seeing a pairing of the themes with this in Fight Club, where Fight Club is a bunch of maladjusted, antisocial men who want to destroy the world because they're unhappy and they're dissatisfied with being who they are. And you essentially have that expressed in the real story in The Social Network, of a bunch of men who are disaffected and unhappy with who they are in the world, and they set about to recreate and destroy everything so that it's in their own image.
That's a really good comparison.
That is a really great comparison. John, I know you and I joke about this all the time because we're of two different generations.
But
Yes.
we have, like, you're a Gen Xer and I'm a millennial. And
Yes.
if there was ever, two movies that represented the angst of one generation, like, say that the angst of Generation X, that would be Fight Club. And if there was one movie that talked about the differences, like why millennials are different from Gen Xers, Social Network, I think, is a great place to start. Do I think it's as cut and dry as Fight Club was when it came to representation of a forgotten generation? No, but I think it's a very interesting comparison with the two adults living in two types of adults living in very different times.
So we'll tip our hat to Mike Schindler and say that's our double feature coming out of this is Fight Club and The Social Network. So there you go.
Like, which pissed off entitled men are gonna break the world first?
Tristan, I want to mention, though, I think you should go back and watch that boating sequence. And I think the reason why you don't think it's in slow motion is because of the music, and the Holy Mountain King is going, it's such a fast-paced track.
Actually,
But
I
if you
watched
go
it
back-
just now.
And
And there's two crowd shots that are kind of slow motion. They're like shot at 30 frames instead of 24, but the rest is not. Like, the rowing is not in slow motion.
absolutely it is. Just
No,
the way that
it
they're
is-
moving is
No,
like... this-
no, man. It's
they're-
it's the tilt shifting. It's the depth of field that makes you think it's in slow motion.
We'll have to disagree.
Well,
I'll go watch it again, too. Because it's like, with them being that, like, Olympic rowers, like, they're moving faster than you were seeing them move, right? Like, they're Olympic rowers and they're going fast, right? So, I don't know.
Well, the boats are generally rocketing down the water, but in terms of how quickly the oars are hitting, I don't know. It's sort of like, I mean, I guess maybe we could watch some curling because you're Canadian, so we could see, some slow motion curling and see how that plays
Slow motion
out.
curling is like really slow.
I like
John's
curling,
in the
just
middle.
for the record. Yes, yeah, so there you go. Now, it's One thing-
I'm sorry, John. I just
Okay.
I'm watching
No,
it
that's fine.
right now, and I can see what you're seeing, and I don't know, man. Like, it looks awfully close to how they were rowing at the beginning of the film, but if it is slow motion, honestly, it has to be at 30 frame. It has to be 30 frames played back at 24, which is that's the only way. But I cannot call this epic slow motion. I'll call David Fincher. I'll call
Let's
him and
call
ask him.
Fine, then
Dave.
I'll add the dinner sequence with the guy from Napster.
That was awesome. Yes, that is a great like semi slow motion. Yeah.
The thing that I want to say is I think that Justin Timberlake winds up being a revelation to so many people in this film, saying, "Oh my gosh, he can act." Which, why should that be surprising for anybody that's been a member of the Disney Club? That he was trained by Disney to be an actor, so him and Britney Spears were destined for greatness. But in terms of his performance, I think that Timberlake is great. I think that the way he plays Sean Parker is terrific, and I hate him so much at the end of the film. I hate him so much because Eduardo is so incredibly sympathetic, and you realize, I think, along with Zuckerberg, in that moment, that he has sacrificed a real friend for a fake friend, somebody who's just using him for the fame and the money. And it really is, something that I think Timberlake helps set this up into a whole other level. And I'm saying all of that to take the opportunity to say, if anybody listening has not seen the film Alpha Dog, with Justin Timberlake, that is the film where you will say, wow, if more people had seen this, then his performance in Social Network would not have caught them off guard, because the guy is a legit good actor. I wish I could see him on screen more frequently, because I think he has real talent, and I think he really helps bring that whole subplot to life.
I'll have to check that out. I think I actually have it on HD DVD.
It's the best format to watch it in, as it turns out.
But
the best.
Yeah, Justin Timberlake, he's one of those guys where you're just like, he's a performer. He's that guy, like, yeah, he's a musician, and that's what he's known for. He's a dancer, he's a music producer, but like, he's also a good actor. Because he's a performer. It's just a way to channel his ability to project himself to an audience. And Justin Timberlake was actually the only actor to meet his real life character before filming. Like, he met Sean Parker and talked with him and wanted to get to know him and everything like that. And Sean Parker said, he's like, there's no reason for you to get to know me, because it wouldn't make any difference in your performance, because Aaron Sorkin's Sean Parker is not me. But it was but like, Justin Timberlake took it very seriously. Like, he's the one who like learned more about him and actually started talking with Fincher and Sorkin more about his history. And the EpiPen thing was Justin Timberlake's idea. Like, at the end of the movie, like, he actually carried that around with him during every scene and pulled it out at the end. And and was just like when he was making avocados, like when he was making guacamole, like, Justin Timberlake went to Fincher and said, like, I don't know if I should be making, guacamole. And Fincher's like, why? Well, Sean Parker is allergic to peanuts. And he's like, well, I don't know if that translates to avocados, but we can risk it. And he's like, well, what if he is? Like, it's a nut thing. And he's like, well, if Sean Parker doesn't forgive us because of the avocados, that's probably the least of our worries with what else he's not forgiving us for.
The thing is, that's an interesting point, though, right? Because this film, I forget who said it specifically. I always mix it up. And you're going to say, how can you mix these two people up? But it's one of these two people at some point. And I'm pretty sure it was either Oliver Stone or Spike Lee. Okay, fine. Get your giggles out, whatever. One of the two of them said that films become the new history. And it's got to be Stone. because Stone's whole thing is about
That
basically
sounds like
recasting
Stone.
history.
Yeah.
So I don't know why I get them mixed up like that, but whatever. Free laugh for you. But with this film, it's so compelling. It's so good. It's so well performed. It's so tight. It's so well constructed that this is one of those things, because you mentioned the Sean, this isn't the real Sean Parker. This is one of those things where it's a lot like, and am I comparing Fincher and Sorkin to Shakespeare? Possibly. I don't know. But it's like Julius Caesar. How did Julius Caesar die? Everybody's notion of how Julius Caesar got murdered comes from Shakespeare, because it's a play and it was really good and it stuck throughout history. And so the legend becomes the truth. It's a man who shot Liberty Valance level stuff. This is the West. We print the legend. And so I almost marvel at the fact that this film becomes more important than any documentary could ever be about this time, and winds up shaping our perceptions of these people. For all I know, Mark Zuckerberg is the nicest guy, and he just didn't expect this sort of power and fame and all of those sorts of things, and was just overwhelmed and was really young. But I come out of this movie thinking, man, he's kind of a dick. I don't really like him very much. Why am I on Facebook? That, it almost seems unfair to these real life people who are still alive. It's almost like you should wait for them to be dead before making this movie so that they can have some of their reputation intact.
Well, it's interesting that they do that with this movie, having it come out so soon after Facebook is a thing, right? Because like you said, Tristan, this is 2004. Facebook comes out, and what is this movie? 2010.
That's right.
So the book has been written. Right? What? I don't know. I don't know the book. I haven't read it. 2 years before the movie came out, 2008. So like this movie, the book is out 4 years later and the movie's out 2 years after that. These people are there. They're in the media and they've got a chance to see this. And if you've got somebody saying that's not who I am, I mean, nobody likes seeing themselves in the media. Like, there's times when I'm editing a podcast and I've said something and I'm like, I want to edit that. But if I edit that, it's not true to what actually happened. And whether I like that I said it or not, I'm going to leave it in there. And then there's times when I say something absolutely ludicrous and I'm like, I have to take that out of there because it's just taken out of context. It's wrong, right? Or something like that. I don't know if you guys do that in your podcast, but I definitely do that in mine all the time. So
We never get it wrong.
Live editing in my brain, brother. Nobody wants these unvarnished thoughts. Trust me. That's why I don't spend so much time on social media anymore.
Right. But you also said earlier there, John, with at the end when you've got Sean, I'm sorry,
Parker.
Parker. I'm so bad with names. Sorry, Sean Parker and Spider-Man.
Andrew Garfield.
Eduardo. No, but you know what? Watching this the whole time I was sitting there, I was like, come on, man, your best friend's Spider-Man. How can you be that way to him? Sorry, go on.
Right, but you said, you called it out. You said he sacrificed a real friend for a fake friend. And I mean, the entirety of Facebook is fake friends.
Yes.
And that sums up the experience right in that final scene.
Oh, I met you guys on social media.
This is all fake, Tristan.
Yes. You're actually imagining this. This is all a simulation generated by Elon Musk, no less.
We met on social media, but our friendship developed because of podcasting, right? We interact.
Yes.
While you're in Chicago and you're in Florida and I'm in Regina, Saskatchewan, we interact and have become friends because of something beyond Facebook. Yes, we became acquaintances, but I mean, with Zuckerberg's first meeting of Sean Parker and the level that he put him on, I remember when I first started getting involved with the Star Trek community on Facebook, and I added a few Star Trek celebrities as friends because now you can just add them. And I remember one that I was just thrilled to get added as a friend. And 24 hours after I had them as a friend, I deleted them because I'm just like, their whole page was just vitriol on specific topics. And I'm just like, I can't handle this. And I just deleted them right away. And it was my first interaction realizing that Facebook is not getting to know these people as through their Star Trek. It's them, right?
Right.
And their beliefs and their whatevers.
And that is a terrific point because there are two things with that. One, and I've said this before, is somewhere else, I don't know where, but one of the greatest sins of the Facebook era is the word friend has been completely devalued.
Yeah.
I have a very specific definition and conception of a friend in my head, and it is not just somebody I'm connected to on Facebook. To your point about the podcasting, we have gotten to know each other outside of a certain context, and so we actually know and relate to each other. And right now, as we're recording this, we can see each other's faces and those sorts of things. And there's a very important aspect to that, because you have to be able to see somebody's face sometimes and their nuances and hear their speech and get to know them, to understand, are they just having a bad day? Am I just having a bad day? Is there some sort of something else that's underlying? And as a friend, you can ask, when they say something caustic, you can say, hey, you feeling okay? Like, what's going on? Why are you feeling this way? And then they can talk to you and get those sorts of things out. And social media doesn't afford you that. And I think that the problem is that negative social media experiences all seem to stem out of the fact that people are speaking as if you have that bond, that understanding. I could say something completely outlandish. I could be a complete a-hole in the moment, but you guys know me enough to say, oh, he's having a bad day. Hey, what's going on? Or somebody can say, even if you don't reach out, you can say, I'm just going to let him chill out for a minute and then I'll talk to him later, sort of stuff. Whereas presuming that you have that connection with people on social media creates all of the problems.
Yeah.
Well,
100%.
let's get back to the film and what
Sure.
you guys were talking about. What you guys were talking about with character assassination, or making movies about people when they're still alive and getting certain things wrong and whatnot. I mean, well, obviously there's a lot of this going on. There's so much about this that is a movie and not real life. And that's a shame, because whenever I see a movie showcasing any kind of history, I never take it as fact. I never take it as, oh, this is what happened. It is how it was. I never do that. But so many people do. So many people don't read or don't investigate. They just consume their history through movies. And with this movie, Brandon, it's funny that you bring it up. They're still alive. Like Zuckerberg himself said, he's like, there's a lot they got right and there's a lot they got wrong. I just kind of wish that there was no movie about me until I was dead. I think he said that to Oprah. And like he said, he's like, one thing that they got perfectly was my wardrobe. Like everything that Jesse Eisenberg wore is something I owned. He's like, not just a type of fleece. That fleece is what I owned. And the one thing that's really interesting to me is that the entire motivation for the character of Mark Zuckerberg, and Fincher always calls him the character of Mark Zuckerberg. He never calls him Mark Zuckerberg. He says the character of Mark Zuckerberg. He says the motivation behind Facebook was very much like, oh, like a girl. A girl broke up with me, and so I'm going to do this to get her attention or get the attention of other girls or things like that. Like when he went to talk to Rooney Mara again, and then it turned into a horrible situation. He's like, we have to expand. At the end of the movie, he just keeps hitting refresh, seeing if she's going to friend him. This is the framework of the movie, and it is interesting because he was with his now wife for most of the events of this movie. Like he found the love of his life. And so for him, that's not why he built Facebook. It was not to impress some girl or get girls. It was just because he likes to build something. And so from right off the bat, your framework is completely fictional. Completely fictional. The main motivation of your main protagonist is fictional on a historical account. How do you move forward? How do you reconcile that? How do you guys, as viewers, reconcile that? Brandon?
Well, I guess for me, in a situation like this, I guess that the importance of the movie isn't about the people involved. It's about understanding this social movement that's happened. So I personally don't really care how accurate the representations of Mark Zuckerberg and Sean Parker and Spider-Man are. What's his name?
Andrew Garfield.
Andrew Garfield. Yeah.
Eduardo
I don't
Severin.
really care. Eduardo Severin, because that's not what this movie's about. This movie's not even really about them for me. It's about this cultural shift that happened because of this thing. And so they're trying to sum up in the film what has changed, because there's so much more than just these guys created Facebook, right? So there is, how do you put money on something like this? How do you put a value on something like this? And that's what the main through line of the movie is. Yes, they've got this neat bookends of Rooney Mara's character, but it's all about the most powerful line in this movie for me is, just because a guy builds a nice chair doesn't mean he owes money to everybody who's ever built a chair before. And I don't necessarily think he stole the idea from them. Yes, it's very close, but that line really makes me think about this movie. And so it makes me think about digital media and digital domains. And Tristan, you and I have gotten into some, back and forths on social media where I'm pissed off that they can't have, why can't I watch the CBS All Access commercial for Star Trek in Canada? Why are they geo-blocking a commercial, right? And like this digital, invisible nonsense borders in this day and age. Like, how do you put a value on these things? And how can we try and fit this in a neat little box of what we understand? And that's what, once we get past that as a society, things are going to be even better, I think, for us. And this movie is trying to understand where things are now and how we get from there to here. That's my thoughts.
I'm not quite as anarchic as Brandon, and I have deep respect for all of the copyright laws of the world and the United States. Just want to get out in front of that in case Disney ever comes after me for some of the pictures I've shared. So no, Brandon, all joking aside, there was one time where I got in a big dust up with friends just along the same topic where, somebody was proposing like some sort of digital download tax. And I was like, well, what the hell? You're going to put a tax on a PDF? PDFs are free. How are you going to tax that? That sort of thing. And, but in terms of squaring history with reality, I fortunately had a crash course in that through my life, thanks to the aforementioned Oliver Stone. My favorite band of all time is The Doors, and I am a Jim Morrison scholar. I've read just about every word that's ever been written about that dude, by people that knew him, by people that didn't know him, by people that investigated him, by people that blah, 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 blah. I know he was a drunk hillbilly who got lucky, okay? And he had a really big gift for poetry and writing. And respect him as an artist, terrible human being. But the film, when it came out, I was a wee lad and a big Doors fan. And it is an exercise in hero worship that at this point is absolutely cringeworthy, especially when you look at what Oliver Stone glorifies about his life. And when you're an adult, you look at it and you say, this is insane. Why would you think that this is good behavior? And the true story is always different than what the film is going to be. And it's a shame, because it seems that you err on one of two sides. You either have a hagiography where you're treating the person as a saint, or you're glorifying everything that they did, and everything that they did was right and good and just and fair, or you're vilifying the person, and everything that they did was complete garbage, and they're terrible people, and screw them. And it's a shame, because I think that things should be more in the middle, and they can't be. That's the place for documentaries, I guess, to try to, good documentaries should consider all angles of a person's life, but the good and the bad. But, all that to say, I can watch this, I can plug into what it's saying, and I do understand what Fincher is saying, which is this is the character of Mark Zuckerberg and the story of the social media revolution, not necessarily Facebook in and of itself.
All right, Brandon, I have breaking news. I while you guys were talking, I texted a friend of mine who is an extremely extremely good cinematographer. Like he's a working cinematographer. Like he's good. He's done TV, he's done film, he's done commercials. And
My Zoom meeting is starting to get really glitchy here for some reason.
and I texted him. I sent him the scene. I said, "Was this 30 frames played at 24, or is it not actually slow motion and just playing tricks on my brain?" I said, "I'm arguing with a friend right now." And he says it fluctuates between 36 and 48 frames per second, depending on the rowing or the crowd. And it also has, as you know, the crazy faux tilt shift effect throughout. And so where I was saying it was 30 for most of it, played at 24, is actually 36, and the scenes in the stands are at 48, which is almost double. So I'm very embarrassed right now. I have to tip my hat to you, Brandon, and say that you are correct. And I'm embarrassed right now because I'm a shooter and an editor, and I totally thought it was just like them rowing with intent. Because that's
I'm so glad my Zoom cleared up for me to hear all that.
That's how slow I row when I'm in the rower.
Yeah. Just as a question, and just to clear up, the fact that you weren't paying any attention to what we were saying, which is cool. I would like to also say that by any definition, then that slow motion would be epic. So total points to Brandon. On
I don't know
if
we'd go that far. Okay, I'm willing
Flawless
to admit
victory, Brandon.
I'm willing to admit when I'm wrong, but I'm not going to lay down and die.
I'm willing to enjoy it. So there you go.
So okay, let's talk about this a little bit. We talked a little bit about Justin Timberlake's acting, which is something I never thought I'd say. But Jesse Eisenberg, come on, right?
He did great. I think he did fantastic.
Got an Oscar nom for his work.
Yeah. Yes.
This is what made me really appreciate him as an actor, because I liked Zombieland. Who didn't?
I haven't seen it.
You should. It's really good.
You should. It's very cute.
It's very cute. And but this one is what really, because he's neurotic in Zombieland in an adorable way. And you can kind of get who the actor Jesse Eisenberg is. But with Social Network, you're like, oh, you're skilled. You're not just a good actor. You're a skilled actor. And I really appreciated that. And Andrew Garfield actually auditioned for Mark Zuckerberg. And Fincher liked him so much, but he's like, you wear your heart on your sleeve way too much to be Zuckerberg. And I think you'd be perfect for Eduardo. And I think that very much reigns true. Like I can't picture Garfield as Zuckerberg. And with the twins, with the Winklevoss, you have Armie Hammer, and who, you had Armie Hammer and I think it's Josh or John Pence. I think it's Josh Pence. You have Armie Hammer and Josh Pence. Those are the people who play the Winklevoss twins. And it was both down to them on who was going to be the twin. And Fincher's like, okay, well, Armie Hammer gets it. And then he goes to Josh Pence and he's like, listen, we're giving it to Armie Hammer, but I really want you to just be with us for the entire film production. And we're just going to lop off your head and put armies on it.
Can you imagine that?
Yeah. How crazy is that?
Can you imagine that? Oh my goodness. When I found that out in the bonus features for this disc, I was floored. I went back and I'm like, it's flawless. I cannot tell that that's what they've done. I can't tell. You might be able to tell, but I can't tell that that's what they've done in this movie.
Well, that's not even actually the point I was making. I mean, I think we should absolutely talk about that. But the point I was making was, can you imagine as an actor going for the role, and then I can't believe he actually said yes. I mean, I think it's great because Fincher said, because he said yes, they got a high caliber actor, and production went so much smoother because they got a person playing a double who is a solid actor and who is a great physical actor and could mimic everything that he needed to mimic, and so it just made everything smoother. But yes, like it would, having one person play twins. We've seen that since the days of Parent Trap, but this took it to another level.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't imagine being that guy and having that conversation with him. Like, I'm sure it wasn't like an immediate yes. I'm sure he had to go and think about it, right? Because it's like, that would be crushing to be like, I'm in this movie and you're not going to see me, right? Like, you're going to see my shoulders and down. Like, that's it. Like, oh my goodness, that would be bonkers.
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating because there are twins who are actors, and I guess it's a limited pool in terms of getting the exact right type of actor.
6'5" actors who are like 220.
You
Twins.
know, you put somebody in lifts, have them go into training. You never know. But I'm not digging it for that. I'm just saying it's one of those things where I think it speaks very much to Fincher's sense of control.
Yeah.
That it's not enough he cannot change. He knows what this person is going to look like, and he is not going to compromise on the casting just so that he can cast real life twins. He's going to take this new technology and blow people's minds and say, no, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the same actor play two people and have a stand-in with them, blah, 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 that sort of thing. And I think that the effect is largely flawless.
Mm-hmm.
There are a couple of scenes where you can see the mapping. Just it's like it is right around the neckline where it's just a little bit off and it's a little bit soft on the jaw, sort of thing. But it is overall just an incredible use of the new technology that has come about, and I think it's a huge step forward based on where we saw him using it in Benjamin Button.
Right.
And so, it further becomes one of those things where it's a move forward where as you track through Fincher's filmography, you see the progress in the type of stuff that he's using go through Panic Room, go through Benjamin Button, and then this is that moment where it's like, okay, we can do this perfectly. We can get exactly what we want on this. And those two films, for all of their weaknesses and all of their greatnesses, go into this. Like, those two films are key to making the Winklevoss twins work in this film.
Yeah, 100%. He's a master who's building on his technology. Very much like James Cameron as well, where they try and establish one technology for one movie and then make it better for the next while inventing a whole new technology and a whole new way of making films. Like, these guys are very similar in this way. I mean, with James Cameron, The Abyss, with the facial technology of the Water Beast, right? And then moving on to Terminator 2 with the Liquid Metal Man, the T-1000. Fincher's doing the same thing. And this movie could not have been made without Benjamin Button and what happened there and what he experimented with in that movie.
Yeah, it's really interesting you mentioned Cameron, but that's like a whole different thing. Maybe we'll do a different show about Cameron at some point in the future, which I would totally be game for because the director's cut of The Abyss is the only valid version of that film. But I really think that Fincher is one of those directors where it is I'm really enjoying this journey specifically because I've never sat down and really watched the evolution of a director like Fincher as purposely as it. I've watched the evolution of Lucas, but that's just that's like saying that I washed my hands. It's just something I do, right? This is a very deliberate act of sitting down with somebody I don't normally pay this much attention to and seeing this evolution from a technological standpoint is stunning. It's absolutely stunning.
This is Fincher's first 100% digital film. Because Benjamin Button and Zodiac, he really changed the game on digital filmmaking, at least in terms of his own digital filmmaking. And it really pushed it forward. But there was always some film elements. But with Social Network, 100%, shot digital camera, shot on digital cards. And also, I think the first major motion picture to win an Oscar for editing that was done using Final Cut Pro.
You had said, though, that Zodiac was done in like all uncompressed digital. Some kind of, I can't remember exactly what you said, though.
It was the first film to be shot digitally using uncompressed format, but not 100% uncompressed.
Okay, so he still used film for that. Okay.
There was a few scenes, like there was some of the slow motion scenes were on film.
Okay. Good. Yeah, I'm surprised. Like, do you have a list of the Academy Awards that this film was like nominated and won for? Because I don't remember this winning a lot of awards, and it should have won a lot of awards.
Yes. So in terms of Academy Award, here are the Academy Award nomination and wins. So nominated for Best Picture, nominated for Best Director, nominated and won for Best Adapted Screenplay, nominated for Best Actor Jesse Eisenberg, nominated for Best Cinematography, nominated and won for Best Film Editing, nominated and won for Best Original Score, and nominated for Best Sound Mixing. So that's a good amount of nominations there with 3 wins. I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at.
Not enough.
Yeah. What? What was 2010's winner for Best Picture? I don't recall. What was?
Wasn't it The King's Speech that won?
Yes, it was The King's Speech, and there was actually an interesting bracket that year because the films that were nominated up against Social Network were The King's Speech, obviously, 127 Hours, Black Swan, The Fighter, Inception, The Kids Are All Right, Toy Story 3, True Grit, and Winter's Bone. That's a good year. That's a lot.
Is that when was that the first year they went to like 10 nominations?
No, the first year they did that was the year before, in 2009.
Because that still screwed The Dark Knight out of a nomination, which made no sense.
I've seen a lot of those. I mean, True Grit was a pretty darn good movie.
Toy Story 3 was a darn good movie.
Toy Story 3 is the best Toy Story movie, but we're not here talking about Toy Story.
I haven't even seen the 4th one. I don't even because I can't even bother. Like the Toy Story 3 is so perfect. I'm like I don't want to go forward from there. But I haven't seen all of those nominees, but Inception, like what? But The King's Speech I've never seen. But it's one of those things where setting aside all of the other reasons that this gentleman has been in the news, that's just another case of Weinstein being the wheeler dealer who pushes through a film to win. He was well known for this, for pushing a film through to win that, you would see it win on Oscar night and you would say, oh, okay. Sure, that's fine. Like Shakespeare in Love beating Saving Private Ryan. It's like,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, I really liked Shakespeare in Love a whole lot, but that was an odd choice. Sure, okay.
Yeah.
But like, I like Social Network. Like you could put it head to head with even like 127 Hours, which I think is just a magnificent film. But I'm like, Social Network's better than that one. But like Inception, King's Speech. I don't know, man. I have to see King's Speech to speak fully to it, but
I've seen The King's Speech and it is a good movie. It's a solid motion picture. I don't really like his directing style. It's not for me. But to me, I feel like The Fighter is a better picture than The King's Speech. And
Fighter was a good film.
Yeah,
was The Fighter the Aronofsky one, or was that the Wrestler?
No,
Wrestler was
that's the
Aronofsky.
Wrestler.
Fighter is the one that had Mark Wahlberg and Christian Bale and Amy Adams.
It's a David O. Russell picture.
Yeah. Another troubled soul who's a gifted director.
Yeah, oh my gosh. So with going back to Social Network, what is, let's say, like what would you say is what's your takeaway from this film? Like when you walk away from Social Network, like what are you thinking about? Are you thinking about oh man, Zuckerberg did Eduardo dirty? Are you thinking Facebook has changed everything, the way that we relate to people? Do you think, oh, poor Zuckerberg, what a tortured soul? What are you guys taking away?
I'm taking away that Facebook changed the world and not for the better, necessarily. That, like I said before, that society got changed by people who were antisocial. And also walking away with that last scene really sort of haunts, because showing him just refresh over and over and over again gets to the idea of how habit forming the social media experience becomes and how trapped in that loop people become. And there's even a line from one of the Winklevoss twins earlier in the film where they're talking about the number of users. And he said, if I was giving out free drugs, I couldn't get that many people to take them. Mm-hmm. And I think that is a very important thing, because there's a very clear message at the end of the film of how many people have we trapped in this loop of constantly looking at other people and other people's lives instead of doing exactly what Zuckerberg did, which is going out and creating and innovating. How have we trapped ourselves in a loop?
I'm thinking about those things too, but I'm also thinking about, like, as much as we don't like the character, like, I'm sure that Sean Parker had some influence on this. And I mean, in this type of evolution, I think about these things. Like, Napster was also game-changing material, game-changing programming. Like, I remember using Napster and LimeWire and things like that to download music back in the day when it was a thing. And it was this amazing thing where I could get access to music that I just couldn't find anywhere else. This is where I was getting this kind of music. And having those types of people coming up with these ideas, like, it takes young minds to come up with these ideas. And all of this together, it was a boiling pot. It was not just one person or one thing. It was all these people together. And while Mark Zuckerberg was the main catalyst bringing these people in, it did take influence from a lot of people to make this happen. And this has changed our world. Things like Napster, things like Facebook, being able to stream things digitally, YouTube, being able to have Apple iTunes and stuff like that. Like, all of this stuff has changed because of the innovations of these people. And our world is still changing and still evolving. And it's going to be interesting to see where we end up. I mean, like, we're going through COVID-19 right now. And I mean, I know we've got friends that work in the movie industry. And I mean, like, while we all want movies to come back to the theaters, this may be a death knell for movie theaters and bringing things digitally into the home, right? Why go out to the movie when you could just get it instantly at home? I mean, they brought movies to Disney Plus immediately, right? Instead of waiting and bringing them to theaters and things like that. Like, times are changing, and there's so much that's going into this big boiling pot of what's happening with our digital media. And that's what I think about when I watch this movie, and it's a lot. So
it's really interesting because you guys have, throughout this episode, throughout this podcast, you guys have talked about the influence of us, Facebook, on the world, and how we react to each other differently, and how we make friends differently, and how they're not really friends, and everything like that, and how it's affected the world. I don't think about that at all when I watch this movie. Not even a little. Like, to me, this is not about the beginning of Facebook. This is not about how Facebook changed the world. Like, this is not about the social networking revolution. Like, I don't see that at all. This movie, to me, is about the interpersonal drama between friend and friend. And when stars align, when people are in the same room and they're either powerful or have powerful ideas, money can exchange hands. And when that happens, things get innovated, things get released into the public, but also relationships are made and relationships can be destroyed. And to me, I truly see that, like, with Zuckerberg and his ex-girlfriend, with Zuckerberg and Eduardo, with Eduardo and his father, with the Zuckerberg and the Winklevoss twins, and with the Winklevoss twins in Harvard. And it's just with all of these relationship dynamics changing and expanding or shrinking or being disconnected, and Sean Parker throwing in a monkey wrench because of his charisma and his know-how. That's the story to me. That's the drama. I feel like it could have been about, you could transplant this story and swap out Facebook with something else, like a MacGuffin. You could put in another invention and tweak it, of course, a little bit, because, the whole, I'm going to add a relationship status wouldn't work on everything. But I feel like the invention, while it is key to what is going on in 2003, 2004, and everything like that, I feel like this is such a personal story between these forces that Facebook is not even secondary, in my opinion.
I don't dismiss that. I do think that the whole reason that this works is because it's not just about this sort of thing that Brandon and I were talking about. There is a very human story about the betrayal and everything like that, absolutely. But what makes it different is that, yes, you can pluck out the Facebook from it and it still works as a story, and you can have anything in there about, a race for innovation or those sorts of things. But what makes it different is the thing that they're all racing about, the thing that they're all trying to claim ownership of, is this thing that has wound up changing the world. And I can't view it outside of that lens as a result, because these aren't, I guess the closest you could get would be something about the invention of the car or something like that, and how, Ford just beat the guy because he thought up the assembly line, and the other car, which was actually more efficient and ran on blah 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 blah, was better, blah blah, that sort of thing. So yes, you can still have that or Tesla versus Edison sort of thing, or about electricity and everything like that. Yes, it's an eternal sort of thing, and it is a world-changing sort of thing. But those things changed the way that people lived, but it did not change the way people interacted with each other. Mm-hmm. And Facebook did.
Yeah.
I feel like
don't
I could
crinkle
argue,
your brow.
I feel like I could argue that with those examples, but I see what you're saying.
People were able to go to night baseball games. Yes, that was a big change. And people could live farther apart. That was a big change too. But I stand by my statement.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to change my answer and say that what it makes me think of is how people come up with the same ideas at the same time. And there's a certain time period for an idea. And the most important examples of that are, we got Armageddon and Deep Impact in the same year, and Volcano and Dante's Peak in the same year. That's what I think about.
I would...
I'm kidding.
Okay.
Well, see, the thing is, I was going to run with that and say the exception to that is, in both of those instances, all four of the movies weren't particularly good. Therefore, Social Network is definitively proven as better.
And I could understand the analogy if the writer of Deep Impact went to a producer of Armageddon before either was made and said, I have an idea for a movie, and he's like, oh yeah, I'll get on that right away.
Well, it was J.J. Abrams, so I don't know.
So
womp womp. Sorry, that's a joke. I'm just kidding. Don't sue.
All right.
See previous comments, RE respecting copyright.
All right, gentlemen, that is it for our podcast on the Social Network. Before we go, what is customary is we give our ratings and why. Brandon, I have a guess, but I want to know why.
1 star. Were you right?
No.
Okay. No, it was 5 stars. I think that this film is a masterpiece of filmmaking. Like the examples that you gave about editing, what John said about this being ruthlessly edited down into this tight story. It is a perfect movie watching it, and there are not many movies that are perfect movies. And you and I, Tristan, we will give a movie that's not perfect 5 stars for various reasons. But I think this one absolutely deserves it because of the tone that it creates, the way that it makes you feel. You care about these characters, you get upset at them, you love them, you wish them success, and you're mad at them for when they take that success away from each other. And it's great to have a movie make you care about people and make you care about the story that's being told. It's a rare thing, and this movie's perfect, and I love it.
John.
Yeah, it's a perfect film. I mean, you guys both know I wasn't particularly bullish on Benjamin Button, and I wasn't in love with Panic Room, but I loved Zodiac. I think Zodiac's a 5-star film, and I think this is a 5-star film. And frankly, going back through all of this, it is annoying how many films of David Fincher's I'm giving 5 stars. Like, I'm in that weird space where when I give The Social Network 5 stars, I'm second guessing myself. I'm thinking to myself, it's not possible for somebody to have this many 5-star films in their body of work. Is it? And fortunately, the answer is yes, it is entirely possible because David Fincher is freaking incredible. So yeah, it's a 5-star film. I think that there isn't a thing I would change. I think that it is just an amazing, amazing film put together marvelously.
5 stars from me as well. This actually was a 4.5-star film for me for a very long time, but when I watched it a couple of days ago, I had the same kind of thought as you did, John. I was just like, I wouldn't change a thing. I wouldn't change a thing. And I thoroughly enjoy this, and this one is in my rotation a lot. I watch this movie a lot. I find it incredibly enjoyable, from the editing to the music, which, Brandon, you talked about earlier, about how phenomenal that is, and just the cinematography, the directing, and the acting. And it's just that every single actor, and I mean this, every single actor who is on screen did an amazing performance. Even Dakota Johnson, who played a character who easily could have just been somebody in hot pants, gave a fantastic, a memorable scene. And I remember seeing her, not knowing who Dakota Johnson's pedigree was, or like never seen her before. And I saw her performance, and I was just like, hey, she was charismatic and funny. We're going to see more of her. And it's just, everybody's like that, even to the university president, who is actually Gary Oldman's manager. Like he did. Like,
oh, really?
Yeah. When I see him, I'm just like, you are a university president. Yeah, he's friends with Fincher. Like Fincher, a close friend of Fincher is Gary Oldman, and he knows his manager and he likes his manager, and he's like, I got to get him, like, because he is this character. Like, I've seen him not suffer fools like this, and like the studio was just like, wait, what? Why don't you get Gary Oldman? Why are you getting Gary Oldman's manager? And it's just like everybody was firing on all cylinders, every single one of them. And this is just such an enjoyable experience. All right.
I want to add something to this here. I just want to say that, like, I was what's not the word is not negligent. I was reticent to do this, but Social Network has taken the number 1 spot for me on my Fincher filmography. It's knocked Zodiac down to number 2. So, yeah, I didn't want to put a movie about Facebook as my number 1, but it is. Because it's so much more.
John, do you want to go into rankings, or?
No, don't do that to me.
All right.
Don't do that to me. I can say though that I know that Social Network has upset the apple cart, and I'm going to have to revisit the list.
Yeah. This one is this I won't say it. This one's in my top 4. But I won't say where. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate it. Please go to thenerdparty.com for more. Please check out all of our other shows. We have Star Trek shows, Star Wars shows. We've got movie shows. We got TV shows. We got Babylon 5. We got Doctor Who. We got Harry Potter. We got stuff all over the place. Nerd content coming at you every single day of the work. You can find it all at thenerdparty.com. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're all over the place. Just search the Nerd Party. And please, if you have the time, give us a rating. Go to iTunes. Go to Spreaker, go to Google Play, Spotify, wherever you can find us, and give us a rating, and let us know by going to thenerdparty.com/contact. Select House of Fincher from the menu and send us an email and let us know that you give us a rating. And
are you guys on Facebook?
I think did I not mention that? I think I did.
I don't know.
Everybody's on Facebook. Nobody's not.
So please check us out. Check out our other shows. Brandon, where can we find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter at Brandon Matella. You can find me over on the Trek FM network with a show called The Line, which is all about Star Trek Picard. And you can find me on the United Federation of Podcasts network with my friend Zach. We have a show called Franchise Fatigue, which goes and covers movies, remakes, and sequels. And last but not least, on the Fan Podcast Network, my friends Chris, Tom, and myself, we have a Hitchcock podcast going through Hitch's films one at a time.
Yes, and you can find me here on the network. I am Kessel Junkie online, Letterboxd, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. KESSELJUNKIE. And you can, of course, hear me on this network co-hosting Aggressive Negotiations, a Star Wars podcast with Matthew Rushing.
And you can find me all over the internet under the name The Insane Robin. You can also find me on this network. I have 2 archive shows called Nerd Nuptial and Punch It, Writing in Star Trek. I recommend you guys check it out. And please, please tune in next week as we discover that what is hidden in snow comes forth in the thaw.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.